What would you do if you found a child crying alone by the side of the road? Would you rush to her aid or turn your gaze away, perhaps feeling it's not your responsibility? Before you answer, let me share a startling story that challenges our understanding of compassion, connection, and the unexpected roles we all play in one another's lives. At the heart of this tale is a cat. Yes, a cat, a humble creature often underestimated. But this isn't just any cat. It's a fluffy tabby named Whiskers, a feline with a heart as big as the sky. Imagine a quiet suburban neighborhood, where the rhythm of life unfolds at a leisurely pace. Birds chirp, the sun casts a warm glow, and children are wrapped in play, laughter filling the air. But on a seemingly ordinary day, the tranquility is pierced by an extraordinary scene. A young girl named Lily, no older than 7, sits sobbing by the roadside. Her tear-streaked cheeks are a vivid contrast to the vibrant world around her. Alone, her small body radiates the emotional weight of abandonment. A stark reminder of the childhood innocence that can so quickly devolve into despair. The world buzzes around her without pause, parents rushing to get their children to soccer practice, teenage friends emerging from stores, oblivious to the quiet tragedy unfolding just a few feet away. In stark contrast, two souls notice the girl. A young boy walking his dog, and of all actors, a curious cat gazing from the shadows. But why is this moment significant? What could possibly connect a girl in need, a boy eager to help, and a skeptical street-smart cat who views the world through a lens of caution? The answer lies not in their circumstances, but in their shared humanity, each playing a part in weaving a much larger narrative. One that transcends mere existence and taps into the essence of empathy and interpersonal connections. Whiskers, perched on the edge of a nearby fence, witnessed the girl's tears. From experience, he understood all too well what it meant to feel vulnerable. Rescued from a shelter after being deemed unadoptable, he lived in a world where every sound could be a reminder of danger, every human a potential threat. Yet there he sat, pondering the girl's plight through the lens of his own survival instincts, a testament to the miraculous ability to empathize in the most unexpected forms. As the moments stretched on, this seemingly inconsequential intersection of lives took on a weighty significance. The curious young boy, Tom, soon approached the heart-wrenching scene. Aware of the social norms that dictate how we behave, he felt the pulse of chaos unfurl within him. Should he call for help? Should he comfort her? Yet fear gnawed at his insides, and hesitation loomed like a thundercloud overhead. But deep down in the chasm of his being lay an unwavering instinct to protect, a calling ignited by his thirst for connection. Drawing closer, Tom knelt beside Lily. "Hey," he said, his voice soft, a whisper of comfort threading through the air. The words tumbled out, raw but gentle, each syllable imbued with genuine concern. Studies have shown that the simple act of reaching out can transform someone's emotional landscape, a concept explored extensively in social psychology. The warmth of connection has a powerful impact on human emotions, often grounding us, much like an anchor in turbulent seas. Lily's gaze flitted from the ground to Tom, the pool of hurt in her eyes glistening with uncertainty. "I'm lost," she finally muttered, her voice trembling like a fragile leaf in a storm. In that moment, Tom felt a rush of empathy surge through him. Here stood a girl in need, someone whose pain mirrored the universal feelings of fear and isolation that every child experiences at some point. As he offered a glimmer of encouragement with his eyes, Whiskers, the tabby cat, sensed the shift in the air. From his high perch, he observed their interactions, parsing through emotion like a wise sage. There was something about this boy. His aura of kindness sparked a flame deep within Whisker's heart. Moved by an inexplicable instinct, he began to tread cautiously down the fence, inching closer to them with careful deliberation. In evolutionary biology, we often speak of altruistic behavior, the tendency of individuals to help others at a cost to themselves. It is believed that such traits have been honed over millennia as mammals banded together to better ensure the survival of their young. Whiskers, while a creature of instinct, had learned the value of companionship and support. The boy and the girl needed one another. They simply needed a nudge, a gentle insistence that their feelings mattered, that vulnerability could be confronted, not shunned. Tom's heart raced as he glanced back toward Whiskers, now slowly descending from the fence with uncharacteristic bravery. Could this cat, too, play a part in celebrating their shared humanity? Was it possible for him to heal not just a girl's broken heart, but to fulfill his own need for connection? This moment was charged with possibility, a powerful current intertwining the three of them. Lily's expression softened, the tension dissipating just enough for curiosity to step in. He asked, stepping into Lily's world brimming with compassion. With each word he treaded further into the territory of uncharted emotions, penetrating the walls where fear resided. "Yeah," she whispered, a shiver of intrigue breaking through her sorrow. Tom nodded, feeling the shared connection tighten their bond. He probed gently, knowing that asking about a loved one often provides an opening, a door through which healing can flow. "Fluffy," she murmured, a small smile trying to break through the remnants of her tears. At that precise moment, Whiskers leaped off the fence, landing gracefully before the two, his round eyes blinking up at the girl. To anyone watching, perhaps strangers passing in their cars, the scene unfolding on that roadside could have seemed simple, innocent, a chance encounter between three lonely souls adrift. But in truth, they were embarking on a life-altering journey ripe with possibility. There was unspoken magic bubbling beneath the surface, a gravitational pull that beckoned towards connection, understanding, and the necessity of feeling whole once again. With delicate strides, Whiskers approached, his soft fur shimmering under the sun's gentle caress. In a world filled with noise and chaos, this moment emerged as a sacred sanctuary, a shared space where fear could be exchanged for trust and vulnerability transformed to strength. As the cat curled beside Lily, warmth radiating from his compact form, a collective sigh echoed from the depths of their hearts, whispered Tom. And as he spoke those simple words, something transcendent occurred. Lily reached out slowly, her small hand finding Whiskers' back, her fingers petting the soft fur. The tabby purred immediately, a soothing vibration that wrapped around them like a hug, a very real reminder that love comes in many forms, not confined to any one species. Research by the Human-Animal Bond Research Institute supports the idea that interaction between humans and animals fosters feelings of warmth, harmony, and connection. The sound of Whiskers' purring reverberated through the air, creating a meditative rhythm, guiding Lily further into the present moment. It was small, heartening bursts of joy, reminders that life could still be tender even in hardship. Unbeknownst to them, their magnetic moment did not escape the eyes of another passerby. A woman, a local resident, observing from her car, felt the heaviness of the scene weighing on her heart. She, too, had experienced moments of loneliness, echoes reverberating in her mind as she witnessed the trio on the edge of something transformative. Yet she, too, felt the tug of indecision, caught between the urge to intervene and respecting their delicate space. But as that inner conflict unfolded, Whiskers lifted his head, making eye contact with the woman. It was as if he sensed her soul, understanding the silent plea simmering just beyond skin deep. The very essence of compassion urged him to extend his reach beyond Lily and Tom. He was part of a bigger web of feeling, a living testament to the bonds we create throughout our lives. In that heart-stopping moment, the woman felt her grip tighten on the steering wheel, a once familiar yearning, prompting her to act. She stepped out of her car and approached cautiously, as if she were about to enter sacred territory. "Hey there," she managed, her voice filled with warmth. Lily wiped her tears with the back of her hand, her expression shifting beneath the sudden attention. I'm lost," she confessed, vulnerability washing over her like a tide. The words hung thick in the air, resonating far beyond her physical state, and beckoning deeper questions about belonging and the innate human desire to feel safe and connected. In a most poignant moment, the cat took a tentative step towards the woman, as if inviting her to join their growing circle of compassion. Whiskers understood the unification of spirits unfolding before him, a gradual, yet profound, metamorphosis that could not be ignored. The woman knelt, her eyes meeting Lily's bare and honest, and in that simple exchange, a connection ignited between them all. "I understand what it's like to feel lost," she said, her voice tranquil as she glanced at Whiskers, who now sat regally beside Lily. "But you are not alone anymore." What transpired next was nothing short of remarkable, a way of life emerging from a cleft in the rock of desolation. The whispers of fear began to dim, and soon hope seeped through the cracks. Together they formed a triad of resilience, Tom with childlike openness, Lily with her vulnerability, and the woman, embodying an innate wisdom that bridged the gap. And as Whiskers settled comfortably beside Lily, sensing her heart empower, a beautiful orchestration unfolded. The world began to change, altering their individual stories in ways they hadn't yet begun to understand. Catalysts for each other's growth, they stood at the precipice of something extraordinary. But then, with the sun dipping lower in the sky, casting the world in hues of gold and crimson, a faint sound erupted from down the road. It was unmistakably urgent, a shout among the familiar hum. The voice was distant yet unmistakable. A figure tumbling out of a car and racing toward the trio, eyes fanning wide like a flurry of wings. Would this be her savior, or another wave of turmoil crashing upon her newfound sanctuary? In those final seconds, as the girl looked up to see her approaching figure, shock flooded her face, uncertainty whipped like wind among the trees. Could the universe truly weave a tapestry of healing and pain, triumph and chaos? Or were they destined to unravel the intricate strands they had so carefully developed? As they stood witnessing the commotion descending upon them, a singular question echoed in the air, heavy with possibility. What next awaited this young girl, the boy, the cat, and an unexpected ally? The scene hung like an unfinished sonnet, ripe with tension, waiting for clarity amidst the clamor of uncertainty. This was just the beginning of their journey, a story marked not merely by fright but resilient love, entwining threads of compassion, a lesson waiting to unfold, all lingering within the cusp of fate. What if, in a moment of uncertainty, your life could pivot dramatically based on a single choice? The weight of this question hung thick in the air as the tension sliced through the quiet stillness that enveloped the road. In front of Lily stood two figures, one her young savior, Tom, and the other, a stranger rushing toward her with an urgency that hinted at both familiarity and fear. The voice rang out like a bell, clear yet laced with panic. It was her mother, Claire, frantically sprinting down the road, sweat glistening on her brow, arms flailing in desperate recognition. In that moment, the weight of emotion swirled around the girl like a tempest, a culmination of relief, confusion, and fear battering against her spirit. As her mother drew nearer, the world seemed to slow. Claire's features morphed from anguish to a cascade of overwhelming joy, flinging herself toward her daughter with open arms. There you are. It was a moment fraught with a mother's love, a love that can drive the strongest person to heights not even they knew they were capable of. Yet within the jubilation was an undercurrent of anxiety, a ripple caused by the unexpected sight of her child, sitting there on the ground, nestled beside an unfamiliar cat and an even more unfamiliar boy. Curiosity tangled with her relief, and in those precious seconds, everything changed. Tom's heart raced as Claire gradually closed the distance, both thrilled yet cautious. He had bridged the gap between strangers, and now, the depth of his connection to Lily felt precarious as it hung in the balance. Would he be accepted or pushed away as they embraced? The very fabric of their recent bond began thrumming with uncertainty, a heartbeat beneath the weight of human connection. Claire asked, her voice laced with both gratitude and protective instincts. "I'm Tom," he replied hesitantly, internally grappling with the vulnerability of his intervention. "I saw her here, crying." He gestured toward the cat, who was now pawing at Lily's leg for attention, grounding the moment and shifting the focus back to the bond that had formed so unexpectedly, as Claire knelt to pull her daughter close. The intimacy of that embrace highlighted the exquisite nature of relationships, those fragile yet powerful connections between individuals that can soar or fracture within seconds. It reminded Tom of the intricate dance of social dynamics, where a single act of kindness, like a pebble dropped in water, sends ripples outward, affecting everything in its wake. "Thank you," Claire breathed, her eyes welling with gratitude as she looked at Tom. His heart lifted at her words, a rush of warmth kissing his cheeks, yet it also left a knot of anxiety lying heavy in his chest. In social psychology, this is often called the bystander effect, an ironic phenomenon demonstrating how individuals are less likely to help a victim when others are present. But Tom felt the pull of altruism, the innate human drive to connect and act in service of one another. As they began to stand, the moment hung heavy with meaning. Whiskers, now more than just a simple cat, had turned into a catalyst, a living embodiment of the bridging force of empathy. Even as the chaos began to settle, with mother and daughter intertwined in a tight embrace, the small tabby was the silent guardian witness to this life-altering event. Lily piped up, her voice soft but insistent, still gulping down remnants of tears. In that innocently powerful inquiry lay the true brilliance of the moment. Perhaps she understood, even at her tender age, that Whiskers had played a critical role. "Oh," Claire said with surprise, realizing he had just nonchalantly weaved himself into their narrative, quietly solidifying a bond that would resonate in their hearts forever. Lily grinned, her previous turmoil already fading from view. Whiskers, basking in the newfound attention, playfully batted at the girl's shoelaces, dispelling the remnants of fear from earlier, weaving joy into the atmosphere. At that moment, laughter bubbled up, unexpected yet welcome, a sonic balm to wipe away the day's tears. But as smiles broke free like blossoms in spring, another figure hovered in the periphery of the scene, a flicker of skepticism, resonating deep within the recesses of Claire's mind. It was the nagging sensation that an unseen force danced on the edge of their happiness. And could it be the pull of lingering unease? That's when the realization struck her. The question cut the air, a subtle reminder that while joy enveloped them, it came with the weight of reality. As Claire looked deep into Lily's eyes, she was met with silence, a space filled with unspoken dread. In that instant, the bustling world around them shrank to a quiet, contemplative stillness, the chaos dissipating into a pregnant pause, leaving only inquiry and concern echoing within. The question poured out of Claire, seeking to pry open the door to clarity. Through deep, wobbly breaths, Lily began to recount her tale. I ran away." Her words staggered out, falling into the void of maternal worry as the reality of the situation began to crystallize. This girl had sought her own agency, but the consequences had rippled far beyond her intention, revealing a riptide of emotions that pulled at them all. At this nuanced moment, empathy swirled like a tempest, casting light into the unexplored depths of their vulnerabilities. Social psychology teaches us that understanding is the first step toward connection. Perhaps Lily's quest for independence had been rooted in a desire to grow, to create experiences uncolored by protective presences. Or perhaps it stemmed from a wish to escape something deeper and darker on the horizon. Tom felt a pang of sadness, the depth of her story settling heavily in his chest as she spoke. He remembered his own childhood, a time colored by much less freedom, a rigid upbringing replete with boundaries that often stunted his exploration. Perhaps that urge to break free was something he understood more than he'd ever realized. And in that shared understanding lay the beginning of a quieter camaraderie, making this whole journey less about the individual and more about the collective, a symphony of hearts learning to navigate the labyrinth of childhood. Claire's breath trembled as she listened, unspooling the threads of her daughter's heartache with each word. "We can talk about this, my sweet girl. Communication is important, and you don't have to feel alone in it." It was a promise, a simple yet poignant reminder of love's complexity, a reassurance of connection, and that proactively embracing conversations about feelings is an essential part of navigating human relationships. As warmth bloomed in the air, Whiskers sauntered between them, a soft rhythm continuing to course through the moment, revitalizing the spirit of hope and companionship. Once a simple cat, now he played the role of a wise guardian, forging these bonds forged in adversity. Just then, as the heartfelt reunion swirled with the reinforcing truths of understanding and forgiveness, a faint odor wafted from a nearby garbage can, an unpleasant reminder of the grit that can accompany triumphant reunions. It was ironic, almost poetic. Life often teeters on a tightrope between despair and hope, and sometimes we tumble. But somewhere in the midst of chaos lies the beautiful balance that guides us back to ourselves. At that moment, as the sun dipped low on the horizon, a group of neighborhood kids strolled down the street, laughing and hollering, the sound like distant music dancing through the air. They caught sight of Lily and rushed over, curiosity bubbling forth as they drew closer to the newfound trio. "Hey!" one of the kids exclaimed, eyes wide with wonder at the scene that presented itself. Another shouted, the surprise lighting up her face. Their thrill began to ripple through the air, laughter breaking the fragile patch of tension like a sudden storm cloud drifting away. As Lily looked up, suddenly surrounded by friends, there was a discovery like petals unfurling in warmth, revealing her worth, and shining a radiant light on her choice to explore beyond her boundaries. Were they not, in this moment, still learning like she was, the delicate dance of freedom versus safety? Claire and Tom shared a knowing glance. They could see the transformation unfolding. Lily wasn't just a lost girl now. She was finding her way, not merely through her own actions but bolstered by the connections blossoming around her. Yet, just as hope soared on the wings of possibility, something tugged at Tom, beckoning an urge to intervene once more and steer the conversation toward an understanding that transcends the superficial. Perhaps, he thought, they could create an opportunity to work together as a community. In that moment, as the sun began its final descent, casting a golden hue upon the strange gathering, Tom felt a deep sense of belonging ebbing closer. Maggie, as children navigated the choppy waters of growing up, each ripple brought them one step closer to realizing just how intertwined they could all be. As laughter erupted forth, the air filled with exuberance and energy, leaving a beautiful warmth in its wake. Whiskers, now firmly seated beside Lily, observed this charming spectacle with unshakable wisdom, as if signaling that he understood their connection, glowing vibrantly with the knowledge that every bond holds the power to heal. But amidst the laughter and joy, lurking in the corners of consciousness, a question simmered. Would Claire and Tom stay connected? Would this single act of kindness ripple out to create a sanctuary for them all? A sense of belonging reverberating in their lives beyond this moment? And as that question hung delicately in the twilight air, the night began shrouding them all beneath a blanket of stars, an invitation to venture into the unknown, where the next chapter awaited just around the corner, like a winding road beckoning them onward. What happens when a moment of vulnerability becomes a catalyst for unexpected change? Picture this. As dusk fell over a quiet suburban street, the world around a small girl named Lily shifted. She had just emerged from calamity, tears smudging her cheeks like watercolor paint, bleeding into a canvas. Sitting alone by the roadside, she felt the crushing weight of abandonment. But unbeknownst to her, this night held more than isolation. It held the potential for transformation. As she sat there, a fluffy tabby cat named Whiskers observed from a distance. He was no ordinary cat. He was a survivor of countless streets. With fur like sun-drenched gold and eyes sharp as shards of glass, Whiskers had learned the nuances of the human condition, not just from watchful distances, but from the moments when he had been part of the fabric of lives unraveling or weaving together. And tonight, his instinct was about to pull him into a life-changing narrative. Now, imagine, on this ordinary evening, the sound of feet padding closer to the curb where Lily sat. It was Tom, a young boy with bright eyes filled with a mixture of innocence and concern. He had been walking his dog when he stumbled upon her scene. The sight of a small child crying alone gripped him, a rush of anxiety igniting something deep within his core. It's fascinating how our brains work in moments of crisis. Social psychology highlights the bystander effect, the phenomenon where individuals are less likely to offer help in an emergency when other people are present. But here, Tom stood alone, the weight of expectation resting solely on his young shoulders. What if he didn't intervene? What if rushing toward her meant stepping into a world he didn't understand? Yet the heart has its own compass. With each determined step, Tom approached Lily, quietly wrestling with his trepidation. "Hey," he said gently, kneeling beside her, their eyes locking for what felt like an eternity. He asked, And just like that, those 3 short words formed a bridge connecting their souls. She looked up, and it was as if the air had become infused with a mix of relief and vulnerability. I'm lost, she managed, the weight of her sorrow spilling forth, each syllable a testament to her isolation. As she spoke, the world around them dissolved into a blur. Cars faded, passerbys transformed into mere shadows. Tom felt a pull to help, instinctively realizing that sometimes the greatest gift we can give is simply being present. This instinct was part of what scholars call empathy, a powerful human trait rooted in the ability to grasp the emotions of others. But this moment was tinged with complexity. For every ounce of compassion, there was a lingering doubt. Was this truly his responsibility? As the 2 children shared their feelings in that surreal bubble, Whiskers seemed to sense the urgency of the moment. He stepped closer, drawn not just by the call of curiosity, but the pure, raw energy of emotional connection. And then, like a dam breaking, it all began to unfold. "I want to go home," Lily whimpered. Her words carried the weight of 1,000 unspoken fears, an appeal not merely to Tom, but to a cosmic understanding of belonging and connection, craved universally, especially by those who feel lost. Tom's resolve deepened. "I can help you get home." Those words were magic. But just as they began to weave their hearts together, the tension shifted. Claire, Lily's mother, burst onto the scene, eyes wide with frantic worry. She cried, her breath hitching as she sprinted toward her daughter. The jarring intrusion snapped the moment, cascading that fragile equilibrium against the realities of parental protection and fear. Claire's instinct kicked in as her eyes sought out the boy. She demanded, her voice a blend of gratitude and caution. The love slam-banged against concern, generating a powerful undercurrent that rippled between them. "I'm Tom," he said, cheeks flushing. "I just saw her crying." The gravity of their interactions was palpable, charged with unspoken fears, an acknowledgement of vulnerability that transcended age, plunging deeper into the universal chaos of parenting and childhood. Claire knelt, her heart swelling, as she pulled Lily into a tight embrace. It was a moment that revealed just how mammoth the love between a mother and child could be, a reminder steeped in instinctual protection. This was a demand for reassurance, a silent request for everything to be okay. But pause for a moment and consider the psychology of connection. In moments of crisis, it is often our willingness to show our true selves, scars and all, that fosters the most profound bonds. We often underestimate the power of raw emotion, the shared experiences that create bridges between strangers. Tom hadn't just found Lily. He had stepped into a human experience, all the complexities, fears, and joys that weave the intricate tapestry of being alive. Stepping back, their moments settled like dust on a sunbeam. Whiskers sensed the release of emotion, threading himself through the folds of this newfound connection. He headbutted against Lily's leg, offering an undeniable reminder of companionship, the simplest yet purest form of emotional intelligence. Lily asked, her curiosity flaring again. "His name is Whiskers," Claire replied, chuckling softly, feeling the tension lift just a bit more. As Claire spoke, life grew vivid once again. The street came to life with laughter and conversation. They were not just a girl and her mother, nor just a boy and a cat. They were part of a mosaic of experiences, each pushed forward by innate curiosity, and in that very essence, a deeper understanding began to suffuse the night. But as dusk deepened into night, a subtle recognition dawned within Tom's heart. Amid the moments of camaraderie, the threat of their social realities loomed large. Would this connection survive beyond this isolated encounter? Would it ripple out to embrace the wider world? As Lily and Whiskers locked gazes, she seemed to understand the underlying mystery threading life together. There was an elemental truth that her mother was learning, Tom was absorbing, and Whiskers was gently weaving into the fabric of their evening. Sometimes, the deepest connections emerge from what feels like chaos, a puzzle brought into clarity through empathy and action. Just then, the air shifted. The evening was thickening with energy, anticipation rippling through the group like electricity. Yet, at that moment of comfort, an unexpected jolt broke through. Barking startled them. The sound of a dog leapt into the scene like a thunderclap, An unwelcome interjection. Tom's dog Kai bounded into the scene, racing toward him. He had been waiting just down the road, but now his boundless energy felt like a stunning reality check amid the miracles unfolding around him. Kai stopped abruptly, turning toward Lily with curious eyes. In all his excitement, a piece of the tapestry began to fray, the joy of connection edged by a sense of responsibility. Calm called reassuringly, kneeling down to calm the rambunctious pup and redirect the excitement flooding in. But the wild energy stirred something else, a realization that this moment of connection, beautiful as it was, required navigation. Claire observed the unfolding scene and caught her breath. Her voice held warmth but carried a weight. It was a reminder that while connections might sprout amidst emotions, the consequences of those connections rippled far beyond the moment. Each body held a heart filled with desires of not just keeping their children safe, but also nurturing that fierce drive for connection. In the scene where Whiskers purred beside Lily, and Tom managed Kai's playful excitability, a curious thought hung unspoken between them. Would love be enough to carry them through the uncertainties life would thrust upon them? With Kai's barking slowly fading into a distant echo, they returned to Lily. "Let's find your way home together," Tom suggested, as they marched down the road, an unexpected parade of 3 children and a solitary cat, an alliance grounded in shared humanity. Yet as they took those collective steps, anticipation took hold. Beyond the shadows, across the distance, awaited uncharted territory, a realm where their connection would either flourish or falter, creating ripples whose outcomes dwelled in the depths of the unexpected. As they walked together, a question hung in the air, a quiet yet powerful inquiry that refused to be ignored. Would love and understanding guide them through to an enduring bond, or were they merely transient figures in each other's lives, moments barely brushed against the vast canvas of existence, fated to dissolve into echoes of memory? The wind carried with it a hint of mystery, wrapping them in suspense as they ventured inflexibly into the unknown. Whiskers, blinded by affection toward the warm bond growing around him, walked at Lily's feet, embodying the spirit of companionship that flourishes when least expected. And as the moon climbed high in the night sky, a shimmer of hope emanated from the group, each step drawing them closer to unforeseen possibilities. There, in the heart of that unassuming moment, the potential for something far greater awaited to be unveiled, a story woven by the invisible threads of compassion, connection, and the unpredictable fabric of life itself. But as uncertainty loomed large, one question remained unanswered, standing vigilant like a lighthouse on the shore. Would they find in their hearts the strength to carry their newfound connections into the tautness of everyday life? Or would their journey disperse with the dawn, leaving behind only memories of what could have been? What if the small acts of kindness we take for granted can alter the course of someone's life forever? The kind of kindness that bubbles up from the depths of our consciousness without even a second thought, transforming despair into hope. On that fateful day, as the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple, a seemingly inconsequential moment was steeped in life-altering potential. You see, it all began with a small girl named Lily, who sat sobbing on the cold asphalt, abandoned by the world, and her only companion, an unassuming tabby cat. Whiskers, as he was aptly named, was more than just a stray. He was a guardian of secrets and silent witness to human vulnerability, possessing an astute understanding of emotions. He had seen enough despair in his life to recognize it in others. So when he spotted Lily with tears cascading down her cheeks, his heart, if felines could possess such a thing, stirred with sympathy. But Lily's escape was not merely from the emotional fallout of a childhood in crisis. It was a consequence of the delicate dance between autonomy and insecurity, a testimonial to the universal quest for self-discovery. When Tom, a young boy wandering nearby, stumbled upon this scene, he found himself drawn into the magnifying lens of reality. His heartbeat quickened, not from fear but from a primal instinct, an urgent desire to bridge the gap between strangers. He asked, kneeling beside her, trying to pierce through the wall of tears and trembling breaths. In that moment, an invisible bond began to weave between them, one fueled by shared humanity and the implicit understanding that connects us all. It's the notion that we are inherently motivated to help one another, driven not just by our instincts, but by the emotional resonance we feel in the presence of another suffering. Humans, but especially children, possess an innate ability to empathize, an evolutionary trait that ensures our survival as social beings. As Tom's voice broke through Lily's despair, something within him stirred, a flicker of recognition that perhaps this one small act of kindness might change both their lives. Tom asked gently, his voice wrapping around her like a warm blanket against the chill of dusk closing in. Lily glanced over, the rawness of her emotions painted on her face. The words spilled out like a floodgate bursting, revealing the sorrow and isolation she had cocooned herself in. Tom nodded, absorbing her confession. This simple interaction served as a turning point, a reminder of the deeper emotional truths shared by us all. The desire for connection, the fear of abandonment, and the inherent need for belonging. But as they began to forge that fragile connection, an unexpected presence broke the silence. Claire, Lily's mother, was racing toward them, panic etched across her face, the embodiment of a protective instinct drawing her closer. Her voice rang out, but as she arrived, relief mingled with apprehension. Claire demanded, the protective shield around her heart thickening as she focused on Tom. A moment of vulnerability hung in the air, a delicate balance between trust and suspicion. "I'm Tom. I found her crying and wanted to help," he explained quickly, the weight of his intervention crashing upon him like waves against rocky shores. Claire's expression softened as her eyes darted between her daughter and the boy, the tension twisting into a newfound understanding. "Thank you, Tom," she breathed, tears welling up, each drop a mixture of relief and a mother's love that could melt the toughest armor. In that swift exchange, they began to witness the intricate dance of human connections, a web we all navigate, sometimes stumbling, sometimes soaring. A web strengthened through empathy, reinforced by vulnerability. Small moments like these, when hearts beat just a little faster and hands reach out a little farther, can propel us toward profound realizations. Claire asked, her voice trembling with uncertainty. It was a question that peeked into the underlying complexity of their interaction. Was this an invitation to discuss what parenting meant in an age of independence? The uncharted waters filled with fear and potential that each parent must navigate as their child takes their first steps toward autonomy. Tom instinctively shifted uncomfortably. He thought back to his own childhood, a time when he wrestled with how independence felt like flying yet terrifyingly exposed. "I think she just wanted to be brave," he ventured, turning to Lily with a gentle smile as if encouraging their unspoken story to resurface. As she nodded slowly, Lily's perception broadened beyond her own hurt, embracing an experience shared by children everywhere. The moment opened like a flower, blooming in the waning light, a mutual recognition that went beyond words, reminding them both of the beauty that can manifest when individuals rally against isolation, even in the face of fear. Yet amid the shared understanding, a shift began to ripple through the scene. Tom could feel it in his bones. His heart raced, torn between the wisdom of a child's innocence and the reality of the adult world that could feel so unforgiving. What if Lily's longing for autonomy brushed against dangers he could not comprehend? Whiskers, however, seemed unperturbed by the gravity of adult concerns. He brushed against Tom's ankle, as if to say, "Keep going." There was an unspoken message in the cat's gentle nudge, carrying a combination of assurance and whimsy. Whiskers had seen what alignment of hearts could create, and he knew to tread this path with patience and bravery. As the three of them stood together, a story began to shape itself, a confluence of individual experiences woven together, like threads in a tapestry. Each of them possessed truths waiting to be uncovered and shared, the gentle vibrations of humanity swelling around them. Just then, a sound rippled through the air, a bark. Out bounded Tom's own dog, Kai. The exuberance of a furry companion crashing onto the scene could have been the punchline to a heartwarming story, yet it held an undeniable energy. It jolted the trio from their poignant moment. Tom called, his voice rising as Kai raced toward him, displaying the uncontainable spirit of youth wrapped in fur. Yet all the while, he could feel the shift in atmosphere. The playful interruption had juxtaposed that intimate circle they formed just moments ago. The presence of a playful companion, particularly one as spirited as Kai, elicited an instinctual reaction from Lily. Her frown faded, curiosity crept into her expression. She watched the dog with wide eyes, a smile threatening to break free. Tom, sensing the shift, knelt down and beckoned Kai closer to Lily, who now found herself entangled in the exuberance of youth. She asked, her voice brightening. "This is Kai," Tom said as the dog plopped down beside her, panting eagerly. Lily tentatively reached out a hand toward Kai, who promptly licked her palm, a playful gesture that sent ripples of laughter through her small frame. The spark of joy was infectious, illuminating Lily's spirit like bright fireworks against the night sky. In that moment, watching a child bond with a creature pure and filled with joy, a deep-rooted truth grasped Tom's consciousness. The interactions among humans and animals mirror our interactions among ourselves, bound by a singular need for companionship, love, and solace. Yet as laughter filled the air, Claire's gaze drifted between her daughter and Tom, a subtle recognition threading through her mind. Something began to weave a tapestry of possibilities. "Thank you, Tom," she said again, the words now resonating with deeper gratitude. Yet still, under the surface, uncertainty brewed. What did this moment signify for their lives beyond the confines of that street? Claire felt a daunting sense of responsibility. Through her fears of losing Lily, she also yearned to nurture the same spirit of independence that had lured her daughter into the wild, all while knowing that the world outside was unpredictable and fraught with setbacks. As they stood together, the comforting warmth of connection around them, just beyond their circle lingered the shadows of doubt, uncertainties that hovered like lurking clouds on the horizon. Claire ventured, breaking the silence, while a touch of hope glimmered in her words. The question carried the weight of vulnerability. Would Tom sense the underlying pressure? Would he embrace it or step away, engulfed in uncertainty? This was not just a matter of kind-heartedness. It was about community, acceptance, and what it really meant to look after one another, in a society saturated with fragmented connections. Tom looked deep into their eyes, sensing both the warmth of invitation and the weight of expectation. His mind raced as he recalled the idea presented by a fascinating study known as the social connection theory, which suggests that the human experience flourishes through relationships that foster support and belonging. "Maybe," Tom suggested slowly, feeling the pulse of excitement and fear as he spoke. The tentative proposition floated in the night air, and it seemed as though time itself held its breath. It was a risk, a leap into the unknown, as they stood on the brink of forging a new understanding across a chasm that once felt insurmountable. Claire beamed, her gaze shifted to Lily, who clapped her hands, her sparkling energy lighting up her mother's world. "We could exchange numbers or something," Tom continued, his voice growing stronger, emboldened by the shared hope. This idea of connection, though tentative, began to solidify, a possibility brewing like a storm over the ocean, demanding to be explored and realized. Each heartbeat echoed the message. "I'd like that," Lily chimed in, her eyes shimmering with enthusiasm. As they began to exchange contact information, the scene unfolded with an unbreakable layer of emotions. Whiskers, once merely a witness, now curled protectively around Lily's feet, watching the thread of connection tighten like a warm embrace. Yet, embedded within the joy lurked an unsettling thought, a lingering inquiry that pulled at Tom's heartstrings. Could this connection indeed reshape their lives? Or would reality, with its unpredictability and challenges, dissect and unspool the fragile bonds they had built? With the exchange completed, and the moon hovering high in the sky, they felt the palpable energy of something larger than themselves, the intricate dance of possibilities stretching out before them like infinite roads unfolding into the unknown. It was a night where connections shimmered like constellations, and yet this journey was only beginning. They stood on the precipice of change, woven together not just by a single night, but by an eternal truth. The power of empathy could indeed forge deeper bonds between souls. As they began to part ways, an agreement hung untouched in the air. One last question lingering. Would the threads of this chance encounter weave vibrant patterns of connection in the fabric of their lives, Or would they dissolve into the night's tapestry, mere echoes drifting into forgetfulness? The stars above twinkled in quiet anticipation, promising that only time would unveil the answers hidden beneath their celestial gaze. And as Tom walked away, he felt the weight of possibility in his heart, the kind of hope that could change everything. With the embrace of new connections surrounding him, he knew that sometimes the smallest encounters ignite the brightest pathways, illuminating uncharted territory just waiting to unfold. The journey of friendship, connection, and understanding had begun, and its potential shimmered brightly, even in the darkest of nights. But as they all descended into their separate lives, the significance of their newfound bond lingered like the taste of sweet fruit, sweet but not yet tangible. There they stood, on the brink of destiny, ready to explore whatever life had in store, knowing that the moral of their story danced on the threshold of the unexpected. And so, it begins. What is it about the innocence of a child and the unconditional love of an animal that can ignite a change no one saw coming? In an age where so many feel invisible, a bond between a lonely girl and a stray cat could act as a catalyst for transformation, reaching beyond the ordinary into the realm of the extraordinary. On the weathered asphalt shoulder of a quiet suburban road, where the fading sunlight painted long shadows, sat a girl named Sophie. She was no older than 8, her face streaked with tears, reflecting a mixture of confusion and despair. How do you explain to a child the twists of life that lead her to this moment? Abandoned, she felt as if the world had turned its back on her, leaving her alone on an unyielding edge of existence. In her innocence, she believed she had vanished into obscurity, amid the bustling noise of life around her. Not too far away, 2 large eyes watched with perplexity. Oliver, a scruffy gray tabby cat with a coat that told of rough streets and many moons, observed the scene curiously from behind a low bush. His life had been spent navigating the complexities of survival, but in that moment, he sensed something that tugged at his heartstrings. Animals, especially strays like Oliver, have an uncanny ability to perceive emotions. They grasp what most humans overlook. He understood isolation all too well. It was a language common to the lost and the lonely. Oliver's instincts kicked in. Should he approach or should he retreat? For a second, hesitation gripped him, and yet something mystical drew him closer to the sobbing child. Perhaps it was the resonance of sorrow echoing through his very being, a reminder of his own struggles navigating through a world indifferent to his needs. This was not just a moment of sympathy. It was a profound realization that their fates were intertwined in this fractured yet delicate moment. As Oliver crept cautiously closer, Sophie's sobs subsided. She felt the shift in energy and lifted her eyes, blinking through the haze of tears. There was a glimmer of curiosity mingled with surprise as their gazes locked. What happened next would unfold like a storybook, but this was not a fairy tale. This was their new era of connection. Oliver approached slowly, paw by paw, as though he were traversing through a field of daisies, not wanting to frighten away the fragile spirit he had sensed. He stopped just within arm's reach, his tail flicking gently in a sign of peace. Sophie's apprehension vanished as she extended a trembling hand, palm up, inviting this gentle creature into her world. In that fleeting moment, a bond sparked, a silent promise of companionship and understanding. Sometimes it is the smallest gestures that mean the most. As she felt the warmth of Oliver's small body against her fingers, Sophie couldn't help but smile through the remnants of her pain. It was a fleeting joy, a flicker in the darkness of her despair. Countless psychological studies affirm the immense power of animal companionship in alleviating human distress. The simple act of petting an animal can decrease levels of cortisol, our stress hormone, and promote feelings of happiness and security. In Oliver's presence, Sophie felt her spirit lift. They were 2 souls, one searching for connection, and the other seeking to offer solace. A sense of belonging washed over her, saturating the fragile cracks of loneliness with an unexpected warmth. As the kitten purred softly, an involuntary smile broke on Sophie's lips, revealing a vulnerability that she so desperately tried to shield. But while this burgeoning friendship bloomed, the timeline of reality ticked onward. Emerging from the tree line, unaware of the little girl, a figure appeared. It was Sophie's mother, Jessica, her expression a chaotic fusion of panic and relief. "Sophie," Her voice crackled like thunder in the stillness, shaking Sophie from her moment of reprieve. Oliver, instinctively tuned to the anxiety radiating from the woman, stepped back slightly. But Sophie's heart raced with fear and uncertainty. What would her mother say? Would she understand her need for connection? Would she accept Oliver as a part of her world? Jessica rushed into view, her relief palpable as her eyes landed on her daughter. But as she saw the cat, the fire of anxiety returned. No! Jessica's tone laced with an urgency born of fear. The world had conditioned her to see not the potential for connection, but the dangers lurking in the shadows. Sophie's voice trembled, a flicker of defiance gleaming in her teary eyes. That plea, the raw honesty held within it, clashed with Jessica's protective instincts. The concept of stranger danger had been pounded into her from every angle. As a mother, she was hardwired to protect her child at all costs. In her eyes, this was risk personified, a stray cat who could carry diseases and danger. But underneath the layers of fear, there lay something deeper, a realization that perhaps both mother and daughter could hold vulnerabilities that needed to be embraced rather than shunned. Sophie, feeling the tension between them, grasped Oliver tightly, as if he were a lifeline in turbulent waters. "Mom, please, he needs me." In that moment, the essence of humanity surfaced, an act of empathy from a young heart in distress. Sophie's plea forced Jessica to confront her own fears and insecurities, as she wrestled with the knowledge that sometimes the bravest thing a person can do is open themselves to the unknown. Psychological studies reveal how parents project their fears onto their children, stifling their ability to connect and explore the world. Jessica's fear of the unknown paralleled society's conditioned responses toward the idea of acceptance. Would she allow her daughter to embrace connection, even if it came from an unconventional source? Taking a breath, Jessica softened her approach. "Sophie, honey," she started, her tone gentler. Sophie's words radiated with innocence and wisdom, layering their conversation with subtle implications that hung in the air, like the unearthed truth that childhood often conceals abundance beyond mundane fears. After a moment, the tension loosened. Jessica could sense the unquenchable spark in her daughter's voice, the passion of youth stirring turbulent waters beneath the calm surface. The protective wall she fortified around her daughter wavered. "Okay," she finally said, kneeling down to meet Sophie's gaze. "We can help him." And just like that, an unexpected alliance began to form. Jessica's mind whirled, thinking of the efforts necessary to integrate a stray cat into their life. But as she looked into her daughter's eyes, brimming with hope, the fragments of doubt began to fade into the background. Here was an opportunity to cultivate kindness, compassion, and responsibility within her child. An opportunity to teach that love often blooms in the most unexpected of circumstances. Oliver, now cautiously drawn back into a fold of acceptance, rubbed against Sophie's leg, each gentle nudge echoing lessons yet to be learned. And it became clear this encounter was no mere coincidence. It was a convergence of souls tailored by the universe, set to unravel the potential within their hearts. As the trio stood beneath the twilight sky, Sophie felt the hope built on fragments of broken promises slowly stitch itself back together, a renewed sense of trust that surged through her veins. In the embrace of her mother and the soft purring of Oliver, she began to understand a lesson was unfurling, uncovering the potential bound within the webs of connection. Yet this was just the beginning of a new chapter. The act of kindness that blossomed between Sophie and Oliver was just a prologue to an uncharted narrative filled with unexpected twists and turns. As they turned to walk back home, the pink-orange hues of the sunset cloaked the path ahead, a promise of adventure lingering on the horizon. But nothing could have prepared them for what awaited. As they approached their home, they were met with a vivid sight, a neighborhood gathering, lights twinkling like stars against the night. Laughter and chatter echoed down the street, beckoning them. In that electrifying moment, Sophie noticed a myriad of children running about, their playful laughter rising into the night air. Perhaps, she thought, this was the acceptance she had longed for, a space where she could be herself. A place stripped of judgmental barriers, a powerful reminder that sometimes embracing the unexpected could lead to newfound belonging. Yet, in the midst of newfound connections, Oliver remained a tether to an alternative life, a reminder of the lessons taught through the silence of despair, that love often finds its light through the cracks of pain. As they stood at the edge of the gathering, uncertainty flickered behind Sophie's eyes. Could this be her chance to forge new friendships? To explore the boundaries of belonging? Or would the fears of isolation creep back into the cracks of her reality? An exhilaration bubbled within, mingling with trepidation. Watching as the laughter blended into music, she felt Oliver leap onto her shoulder, purring softly, a tangible reminder that she was embraced by kindness. Here stood Sophie at the crossroads, her heart racing with possibilities. The flicker of hope surged through the air, tension crackling like electricity. Would she have the courage to take that leap toward the circle of laughter, or would fear hold her back, pulling her in the opposite direction? The decision weighed heavy on her spirit, wrapped in the simultaneous allure of new beginnings and the familiar embrace of fear. As she took a step forward, the air shimmered around her like the promise of dawn, and in that charged moment, everything hung delicately on the brink. What lay ahead was a vivid tapestry yet to be crafted, threads woven by connections, resilience, and unwavering spirit. But could she embrace it, or would she let it slip away like shadows in the night? This was their moment, the moment that would change everything, and it was only just beginning. What if the smallest act of kindness had the power to change lives forever? What if an abandoned girl, crying beside the road, could find solace, not from a human, but from a creature often seen as distant, aloof, and powerless? Prepare to dive deeper into a tale that challenges our perceptions of love, companionship, and the fascinating ways our lives can intertwine in moments of vulnerability. As dusk settled over the suburban landscape, a blanket of star-speckled darkness crept in, but Sophie hardly noticed. The warmth of Oliver's little body against her was more than comfort, it was a lifeline. The stray cat had ventured into her world that day, perhaps guided by instinct, or perhaps by fate. For Sophie, whose heart ached with abandonment, Oliver felt like a kindred spirit. In those moments of quiet connection, Sophie began to share her story with the gray tabby. Leaning down, she whispered about her tumultuous day, her unraveling relationship with her parents, the disconnection she felt from her peers, and how life seemed overwhelming. She spoke softly, as if revealing secrets meant only for his ears. Oliver, with his big golden eyes, listened intently, mirroring the empathy she sought, a soft purring emanating from deep within his chest, resonating like the low hum of a comforting melody. This unexpected companionship held a profound power, supported by research that highlights the effects animals have on our emotional well-being. A landmark study by the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention revealed that pet ownership can result in lower blood pressure, increased physical activity, and reduced feelings of loneliness. These tangible benefits of animal companionship were manifesting right before Sophie's tear-stained eyes, with this cat offering her solace without judgment or conditions. As Sophie stroked Oliver's fur, each stroke felt like a bandage on the wounds that had festered in her soul. The world around her faded away. The noises, car engines, bustling crowds became a mere backdrop as she embraced this moment. It was a revelation of sorts, born from the wisdom of those who have faced loneliness, may be drawn together in unexplainable ways. Sophie's heart swelled with the blossoming seed of acceptance, the kind that knows no boundaries. But just as she started to feel a glimpse of hope, Jessica arrived, her panic and relief swirling into an emotional storm as she spotted her daughter. The sudden appearance of an adult loomed large, casting a shadow over their intimate moment. "Sophie," Jessica gasped. The worry etched across her face was impossible to ignore. But when her eyes landed on Oliver, the moment that should have been filled with joy took a drastic turn. "No, get away from that cat," Jessica cried out, her words cutting through the air with an intensity that seemed to freeze time. Sophie felt a deep pit open in her stomach. She tightened her grip on Oliver as her mother's voice turned into a tidal wave of fear. Would Oliver be torn away from her just as she started to feel accepted? Would fear erase the connection they had just begun to forge? Sophie whimpered, her voice trembling. "He needs me." Here stood a mother filled with protective instinct, one who saw threats everywhere in a world fraught with dangers. It was a gut-wrenching moment of truth. Jessica's apprehension highlighted the societal narrative ingrained in adults, the relentless caution instilled in their minds by countless tragedies and fear-laden news cycles. The fear of the unknown wrapped around Jessica, which often clouds the ability to see the beauty and resilience that exists in surprising partnerships. As Jessica's stare hardened, Sophie realized she had to advocate not just for Oliver, but for herself, a girl desperately seeking connection in the fragments of her broken world. "Mom, he is our chance to help each other." Sophie's voice grew stronger, filled with the determination of a child who, despite her youth, bore wisdom well beyond her years. Jessica hesitated momentarily, the struggle for understanding evident across her furrowed brow. She stood at the intersection of motherly fear and the compassion for her daughter's plea. In fields of psychological discourse, this moment illuminated the phenomenon known as attachment theory. Sophie's attachment to Oliver demonstrated the innate human desire to connect, to find solace in the face of vulnerability, not just from human interactions, but within the embrace of all living beings. Jessica's resolve started to waver as she felt the sincerity in her daughter's conviction. Should she allow fear to dictate this moment, or should she explore the uncharted territory of empathy? Jessica questioned, her voice softening, desperation mingling with maternal instincts. "Life is a risk, Mom," Sophie said, the truth of her words resonating deeply. In that moment of clarity, Jessica felt a shift within herself. The threshold she stood before was not merely the result of chaotic circumstances, but an invitation to embrace the unknown and to grow alongside her daughter. "Okay," she finally uttered, bending down to meet Sophie's eyes. "But we need to ensure he's safe." And with that, a fragile pact was formed. Sophie felt a wave of relief wash over her as she smiled, both grateful to keep Oliver and thankful for her mother's willingness to step into the unknown. The trio began a new journey together, one that transformed not just the lives of Sophie, Jessica, and Oliver, but began to weave a fabric of connection that reached an entire community. They decided to care for Oliver, bringing him into their home, a place laden with the echoes of both joy and sorrow. Sophie busied herself learning how to care for him, seeking advice from online forums, exploring the nuances of feline behavior. They turned their home not just into a refuge for Oliver, but into a platform for Sophie to express herself, finding confidence in nurturing another being. The essence of community manifested when the neighbors began to take notice of the little family forming. Sophie's open heart inspired others in her neighborhood to uplift each other. Jessica noticed the warmth of those bonds as they formed playdates for the children, where laughter intertwined with shouts of joy in their backyards, an echo slowly fading away from fear. It was as if the ripple effect of Sophie's love for a cat she had once found beside the road had sparked a wave of synchronicities in others. The child who once felt abandoned became a linchpin of connection, someone who had courageously embraced vulnerability and in return drew others in. Each night, as Sophie tucked Oliver into bed alongside her, she whispered stories about her day, pulling from the well of imagination within her heart. Through Oliver, she rediscovered her voice, narrating dreams grounded in reality. She proposed one evening, and so began the planning for a neighborhood gathering that promised to instill a sense of belonging in every child, like a beacon shining brightly in the night, ready to guide the lonely home. Excitement built as Jessica and Sophie invited families to join them in the park, not just to celebrate Oliver, but to create a safe space for every child that felt like an outsider, a chance for them to connect over games, laughter, and sweet treats. As the day of the gathering approached, the air was electric with anticipation. Sophie struggled between excitement and jitters. Would the other kids accept her? Would they embrace Oliver? Every what-if raced through her mind like an unpredictable windstorm. Jessica noticed the flicker of doubt, memories of fear pressing against the burgeoning confidence. It was here that she took a moment to turn it back, instilling belief. "Sweetheart," she said softly, "remember that the love you share with Oliver is a beautiful thing." Those words cradled Sophie with warmth, unlocking a surge of bravery within her heart. The day finally dawned, bright and beautiful. The sun hung high in the sky as families gathered, bringing laughter and games to the air. Children dashed, unfolding the canvas of youthful joy, while adults mingled under the sun, a community slowly finding its heart again. And there it was, the tipping point of connection, ignited by an abandoned cat and a little girl who had dared to believe in magic after despair. Birds fluttered overhead, laughter intermingled with the gentle breeze, a serene moment of healing hanging like the aroma of cotton candy in the air. Sophie stood beside Oliver, who sat proudly on a picnic table, the center of attention amidst curious gazes. For the first time, she felt a profound sense of belonging, one that came not from what she grasped, but from how much she was willing to give. As she glanced around, she saw children who had also once felt lost come together, bridging gaps with laughter and stories rooted in resilience. They demonstrated the very essence of human compassion, forever striving for connection, even through the barriers of anxious hearts. But then, amidst the jubilant atmosphere, a sound sliced through the air, a sudden yell followed by thundering footsteps. A child had taken a tumble, invested in a game of chase. As she fell, the collective gasp of the crowd paused time. Sophie's heart raced as she witnessed the scene. Would her new friends dismiss this moment of vulnerability and run away? But instead, to her astonishment, they rallied around the fallen child, lifting her and wrapping their arms in supportive embrace. The empathetic reaction that unfolded painted a vivid reminder of childhood innocence, a reaffirmation that connection blossoms where you least expect it. It was a collective awakening in that moment, one that resonated not just within Sophie's heart, but down the corridors of their lives. She realized it wasn't merely about having a cat or the barriers they had transcended. It was about the choice to embrace love, vulnerability, and ultimately understanding. As darkness crept over the gathering, a chorus of crickets chirped gently in the background, a lullaby serenading the children who laughed and danced under the bespectacled sky. Sophie felt a deep sense of fulfillment ripple through her as she snuggled Oliver close. They had not only opened their hearts, but had ignited an unbreakable bond, a friendship that radiated beyond boundaries, shaped by empathy and kindness. Yet a flicker of intrigue remained. As Sophie gazed at the twinkling stars above, she felt the stirring presence of wonder and magical possibilities on the horizon. What lay beyond these connections? What other adventures awaited for a little girl who dared to unleash her heart upon the world? In that moment, under the canopy of stars, she understood that life is filled with mysteries waiting to unfold. And as a gentle breeze rustled through the trees, she knew that she would face them head-on, with Oliver by her side, her heart brimming with hope anew. And in that exhilarating uncertainty, the story truly began.